Good evening, everyone. We have a few parents still working their way in, so we'll try to start as promptly as we can at 7 o'clock so everybody can go enjoy this gorgeous evening. So just give us a few more minutes and we'll get you started so we can get you out of here. All right, I think we have a lot of people here who got here on time, so we're going to get ourselves started. Again, I wanted to welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. Again, I know it's a particularly gorgeous night out there on a September night, and I know everybody's spread thin in a lot of different ways in September, starting off back with the students, and I'm sure all the other obligations you have, so I appreciate you taking the time to come in. After 2 years of having this event via Zoom, we're thrilled to be here in person. And it's a little bit of a test for us to see, the turnout we get, understanding that parents, a number of them are joining us tonight via live stream remotely. We did want to see and offer an opportunity for those who could make it in person. I'm a little biased towards seeing people in person and having a chance to kind of connect. So if you have any questions, we're glad to have you here in person so you can ask them. A formal welcome to the class of 2023 seniors that are in the audience. Parents and caregivers that are here. Again, for those I have not had the pleasure to meet, I'm Jason Sabino, and we will have the opportunity to meet and hear many of the members of our school counseling team that are here as well tonight. Really, my goal in starting this off is just to send out some positive vibes tonight about this process. Hopefully positive vibes in regards to the excitement and the opportunity that awaits for all of the seniors, and soon-to-be graduates. So we certainly know, I've been doing this for some time, that the college application process can be described as stressful, but I certainly implore the students not to lose sight of the celebratory milestone that this is, and really the opportunity to educate yourself on all the options that are out there for you. I know at this point most of you know well the school counselors that are helping to support your children professionally, and they will see you through this journey all the way to the end, from, as I like to cheesily coin for all time here, interest to acceptance and beyond. So looking forward to having this opportunity to support your child throughout this process. Being seniors, they've already certainly done some navigation of the process here. I know the school counselors have met with you to discuss, junior conferences last year about this process. But this is really an opportunity to kind of put another review of the timelines and the process for college applications and other planning. So we want to make sure that we promise you tonight that we will see you through here, and also obviously the parents and the families supporting the students. Just a small bit of housekeeping since we begin, since we're back in person. As questions come to you, please just jot them down, and we will allow opportunity at the end to take questions. Ms. Kruger and the other counselors will help us out getting questions from the audience before we close tonight. If you do have a very specific or individual question, I do ask that you schedule a time to meet with your counselors after tonight, and also you'll have opportunity to review much of these slides. It will be recorded if you want to look back. So don't be concerned about taking too much notes here. You will have an opportunity to look back at this if there's part of the presentation that you feel is particularly something you want to focus in on. So without further ado, again, welcome, and I would like to welcome our school counselor, Mrs. Barbara Meyer, to the mic to start us off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sabino. Good evening to everyone here and online. This is really the kickoff night for the big event. We have been planning for and looking and talking about it for so long now, and here it is. Your students are seniors. They're starting really seriously to look at what lies ahead, and it's right here. The application process, as Mr. Sabino said, is an amazing, miraculous journey, and it's transformative. Well, maybe he didn't say that, but I think it is. The main thing is it can be, or seem, at least right now, to be a little overwhelming. That's the sense that I've gotten from some of the students I've talked to and a few of the parents. But I really want you to understand that one of the reasons we are here is that we've been through this many times before, and we're here to help you. We are your resource. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you have questions you can't answer, we hope that you will rely upon us. So one of the first things that you consider as we approach this kickoff is, how do I find the right fit? What kind of college should I really be applying to? And what does that mean anyway? What is a fit? Well, I like to think of it in 3 ways. And maybe if we break it down like that, it'll be a little simpler for you to see what it is that you and your kids are looking for in a college. Number 1, a college, if you want to go there, it should be a place where you can learn, you can prepare for a career, you can explore ideas that are interesting to you. It's an academic piece. That's number 1. Number 2 is also just as important, because it's about finding a community where you feel comfortable, where you can feel that you fit in, that's geographically a wonderful place to be. And if you're not comfortable, if you don't feel good where you are, it's very hard to learn. So number 2 is also very important, and that's part of the research that I hope all of you have been engaged in. The third thing is a college, very important part of it, a college that will accept you and welcome you. And when you feel overwhelmed by the process, don't forget, there are over 3,500 wonderful colleges in the United States of America and more abroad that really want your students. So there's always a good fit. It's just finding it. So how do you decide? Well, let's go back to number 1. Think about what it is you're going to college for. What do you want to learn? And what does that mean? That's the major. That's the major that you're going to focus on. And that's a very important piece of the puzzle when you decide what's the best fit, because that's where your research and digging into the website is going to really help you, and visiting and talking to other students and people who have been there before. If you're the kind of student, or if your child is the student who's always known they want to be a nurse or an engineer or a sculptor or painter, or maybe they're really intrigued to find out about sports analytics, or maybe cybersecurity, well, the search is going to be a lot easier in the case where you know exactly what you're interested in pursuing. That's going to help a lot. But don't despair, because if you don't have that sense of knowing exactly what you want, you're in the company of a lot of students and people in this world. And so you're looking for majors, but you're mostly looking for the kind of college that has a good general studies or liberal arts approach to education. And they won't require you to make up your mind about your major until the end of sophomore year. So that's a very different way of looking at the college that's the right fit for you. So one thing you want to check very carefully these days about that major piece is you have to know that colleges, competitive, not so competitive, generally accept a certain percentage of the students who apply. And very often, they have a general acceptance rate, which you might find on Naviance. But the thing you need to pay attention to is that there is a very specific percentage of acceptance that may be tied to the major that you're applying into. Good example, University of Illinois recently sent out an email to all of us to let us know that their overall acceptance rate for the incoming class last year, the class that's just beginning, was 45% of the applicants. But the percentage of applicants who were accepted for computer science was 6%. Now, many of the state colleges and competitive colleges will ask you, the applicant, to provide the first and second choice of major. And in many cases, if you're not accepted into one of those majors in those competitive or large state colleges, you might have to go to a different institution to pursue it. Or you could agree to take whatever major the college offers you if you really want to go there. Well, I don't know, philosophy, anyone? Anthropology, perhaps? So that's what you have to kind of look at the website, and not kind of look. You have to dig in and look. That's why most counselors will tell you that you really ought to narrow your list of prospects to between 6 and 10 colleges. Because if you really do your homework and you really pursue an application in a polished and professional and in-depth way, you're going to run into trouble if you get too many colleges on your list. It's going to get very confusing. So finding the fit is the first question, and those 3 determinants are your guides. So embrace that college website and dig in there and see what you can find. You can look at the academic information. At the top of all the websites, it says academics. And there you can find not only a list of the majors, but you can find, if you dig in there, you can find out who's going to be teaching your first classes and how many courses in that major are really the ones you want to study. So the website is enormously important. And most of the colleges, thanks to the pandemic, have really built up their websites in depth. There's a lot of information there for you, way beyond what any counselor can tell you. We can point you in a direction, but you're going to have to dig for it. Now, let's go to number 2. Now that we've decided what your academic focus is going to be, number 2 is the community that you're looking for. Now, maybe some of you have gone out to some of the colleges to look. Maybe you've taken virtual tours. You need to get a sense of how comfortable you're going to be in a giant state university of over 50,000 people, or how comfortable you're going to be at a small liberal arts institution where there may be 3,000 people. Those are the decisions that you can make by looking and by going again on the website. Look at the sports, the clubs, the activities. Look at what's available, where you're going to fit into that. And if you like a cold climate, or if you want to be near a beach, the geographic location is important. And let's not forget what came to mind because of the pandemic. Sometimes it's best to look pretty close to home. You can save a lot of money, transportation, convenience, and there are lots of great colleges within an hour's drive. So don't neglect that. And number 3, let's get down to number 3. Last but not least, let's look for a college that fits you, because they're very likely to admit you and welcome you into their fold. that's the kind of college that you want to apply to. That's the kind of college you want to go to because you're going to fit right in. Now, my colleagues are going to give you a lot of specific information about the application and how to go forward, all the different steps that we'll be leading you through in the next few weeks. But I hope that you'll bear in mind those 3 major essential questions, if you will, because they'll be your guideposts as you look through the colleges and decide what's the best fit for you. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Lauren Saget. She's going to be talking to you a little bit about applications.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. So good to see everyone tonight, both in person and online. So after you've done all this great research that Ms. Meyer was talking about in finding your fit of schools, right? You have your list, your likely schools, your match schools, your reach schools, and now it's come time to apply. So the first thing you want to do is dig back into those websites that Ms. Meyer was talking about, go back to the admissions area, and look at their checklist and what you need to do for those particular schools. So you can find out there what applications they take. Some schools have their own specific applications. Many schools also take the common application. We love the common application because it allows us to fill out a lot of data, information, essay once, but it does have some school-specific questions often as well. So on those applications, it's going to ask you some demographic information, your name, your address, what high school you went to, some information about your parents. So just delving into who you are, where you've come from, your education, a little bit about the classes you're taking this year. They're also going to ask some information about your activities and your extracurricular commitments. Okay. Now, for some students, that may be sustained involvement from grades 9 through 12, and that's fantastic. You want to highlight any leadership positions you've had, whether that's a title or whether that's you've taken ownership over something in that club, right? Like maybe you took the lead in a fundraiser or planning an event. So you do need to kind of, promote yourself in this area and really highlight those things that you've accomplished. And I think it's also important to understand that for a couple years there, right, grades 10, maybe part of 11, a little bit of the end of 9, things were not really fluid in the same way, right? Some students were not able to participate in activities due to COVID and the pandemic. Colleges are still aware of this. So you want to think about the ways that you were growing during that time. So maybe you didn't get to do conventional sports that year, but you learned how to skateboard and you built a half pipe in your backyard, right? So you want to think about, okay, if I wasn't able to do those organized activities in the same way, how was I growing as a human being? How was I growing as a person? What was I delving into that I could still communicate with these schools that will still be able to show them that I took that initiative, right? So make sure that you're really utilizing that area to show all of those things that you've done, whether, again, it's the organized activities or if due to COVID, maybe you needed to be a little creative and flexible. God bless you. Then, again, if you're utilizing the common application, there may be those school-specific questions. That's where they're going to ask you things like, what semester are you applying to? They might ask you what major you're applying to, like Ms. Meyer was talking about. And they may ask you some school-specific questions, right? Why this school? Why the major you've selected? What do you think is a unique characteristic you have that will add to our school community? These school-specific questions, these admissions committees are really thoughtful about the questions that they're posing in this area because this is their unique part of the Common Application. So if you're copying and pasting these, answers from one application to the next, that's really not the best approach. This is the place you're supposed to be able to show them why you're a good fit for that particular school, that you've done the research, right? That you know that institution and you're fit for that institution. So you want to make sure if they do have short answers or additional essays in this area, that you're really putting the time in to be thoughtful. So you want to plan and give yourself enough time to complete those before you click the submit button. There's also the personal statement, right? And the Common Application gives you a few different prompts, including topic of your choice. And again, this is a place where you really get to tell your narrative and your story while also showing off your writing style a little bit. So they get to learn a little bit more about you and your passions and who you are as a human being. Also on the Common Application, there's something called the Additional Information section. This section includes a general prompt, so they basically give you a box, and they say you have 650 words here. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about yourself? It is completely up to you whether or not you utilize this section. This is something where if you feel like there's something that just doesn't fit anywhere else in your application, they're giving you some space to use your voice there to communicate that to them. So you don't have to feel pressure. If you don't have anything, don't use it. It's fine. But if you do have something to say, it's there for you. They also added a year or so ago this COVID or other natural disaster question. It gives students 250 words in order to communicate any piece of hardship related to COVID or natural disaster that has, impacted them that they would like to share with the committee. So this allows students to, if they want to communicate something, but they don't want to use their whole essay, their whole personal statement for that, again, there's this designated space to communicate. And again, it's COVID or other natural disasters, so whether it's COVID or Ida or something else that has impacted you, there's the space there to do that, and again, that's on the Common Application. You will also need to be requesting your transcript, official transcripts to be sent in, and know that we also send a copy of the high school profile with that transcript. So these schools are able to take a look and see the courses that you've taken within the context of this school and community, in other words, the courses that are offered here, and they'll take into note any trends in grades, upward trends, downward trends, trends by academic subjects, strengths, right, courses of interest. And the profile also allows them to kind of get familiar with the community, both our academic piece and the experiential learning piece that we have and where we're situated. Now, there may also be some schools that require a self-reported academic record. Maybe they don't want the transcript up front. Maybe they want you to transpose your grades, so you can go into Genesis in the grading tab, pull up your unofficial transcript, and use that as a tool to help you with that self-reported academic record. So you'll want to have your transcript in front of you while you're doing that, because you need to be accurate. For those schools that will only take a self-reported academic record and do not want the transcript yet, they are going to use that SRAR in order to review your application for admission. And then if you're admitted and choose to attend, they will ask for a final high school transcript where they can check the information to make sure that it was true and accurate at that point. Standardized test scores, we're at a point where some schools want them and require them, and some schools are more flexible and maybe test optional, or they may be test free and not want to look at the tests at all, ACT or SAT. So again, this is where you need to do your research and know not only what the requirements are, but what the deadlines are where you need to be making those decisions. Am I going to be using those test scores or not if it's a test optional school? And that really varies by institution. So you do need to use your, do your research on that ahead of time to understand what is the testing policy, and what are the cutoff dates to determine what type of testing policy you're going to be using. If you are going to be sending in test scores and they do require official test scores, those you need to order directly from the College Board or ACT Inc. by going into your student accounts. The counseling office does not send in standardized test scores. So that's something, again, that needs to be on your radar, that you're doing in a timely fashion to get those in time for your review. Letters of recommendation. Hopefully you all approached teachers last spring to request those letters and got your teachers their questionnaires and got the counselors the student questionnaires that we asked for. You will want to look ahead and see how many letters the colleges will take, so that when you go to meet with your counselor, you're prepared and saying, okay, I'm going to be asking that this letter from X teacher be sent to this school, or that both of these teachers' letters go to this other school, because it can vary how many letters they will take, and some colleges may not take letters at all. So you want to be prepared for that before you go in to meet with your counselor. And again, the recommendations just provide some additional context. The counselor letter is kind of the bird's eye view of who you are in this school and community. Academically, personally, how you've grown. We get to work with all of you for so many years and get to know you, which is fantastic. So we get to advocate for you. And then your teacher letters give a little bit of information about who you are in the classroom, right? Like intellectually, what are you passionate about? Your writing, are you a student who speaks up in class a lot? If not, that's okay. They'll highlight other strengths. It takes all different types of strengths to make a college community, right? They're looking for all different people who are going to be able to have all different strengths. They're building up a class from scratch, right? They open up their first application to read. There's no one in their freshman class, right? So they're really looking for diversity in many different ways to create that community. So all these different pieces of this application, right? Learning about you and your background, what you've done over the past 4 years, the classes that you've taken, your stories that you share in your essay, all of this, they're like different pieces of a puzzle to add up for them to get a sense and a picture of who you are as a human being. Now, some of you may be applying to programs that require an audition or portfolio. If you're applying to photography or art or architecture or music, so that's an additional piece that you will need to, again, research in advance. How do I schedule my audition? When does it get scheduled? Oh, I have a portfolio. How do I submit that, right? So this is just another piece you need to be aware of in advance. And also, if we have any athletes out there, registering with the NCAA Eligibility Center, communicating with your counselor, and communicating with your coaches to understand the timeline for athletic recruitment for that particular sport. There are some colleges that may take into account demonstrated interests. Some do, some don't. It just depends on the school. Demonstrated interest is, you going in and expressing an interest in a school. One way to do that is going to tour the college campus. You sign up online, right, for a tour, so they know that you're coming, and then you check in so they know that you were there. Sometimes with virtual programming as well. Again, like Ms. Meyer said, a lot of the virtual pieces for institutions have been beefed up and have stayed in place, so a lot of them are still doing virtual tours, virtual open houses, anything that you can register for where they know that you've attended for a school that tracks demonstrated interest will be taken into account. We also have a huge range of colleges that are visiting here. You hear students, you hear it in the morning announcements every day, right? Those upcoming visits. And then they're also posted in the Warrior Weekly, where you can click out to the calendar to see the schools that are coming. So that's another opportunity for you to maybe ask the admission officers some more questions about these specific components of the application for their school, for you to allow them to put a face to a name, right? Because oftentimes those are people who are going to be the first reader of your application. And also, If they take demonstrated interest into account, that's another point of contact. So again, not all schools take demonstrated interest into account, but if they do, these are some ways to demonstrate. Some may also interview students. So that's another opportunity, whether they travel to interview or whether you can go to campus to interview. That's another opportunity to put a face to a name and to communicate more about yourself in person and to demonstrate your interest in the school. And then this is just some information that we have up, and counselors are going to be sharing it with students regarding the senior class and our contact information, things that you might need to complete the common application or school-specific application. So again, we'll be sharing that out, but I just put it up here for you to be able to take a look and see the things that might be required. And now I am going to hand over the microphone to Ms. Rito, who is going to be sharing some more information about the senior checklist.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So up here, you'll see we have the senior checklist. This is stuff that you can start doing right now. The questionnaires, as Mrs. Saget said, you should have asked last year your teachers for letters of recommendation and sent them the questionnaire form. You also should have filled out a counselor one. If you have not done so yet, that's top of the list right now. Please make sure you get those out. The next is your resume. This is really optional. Most schools don't really look for it, but it can be helpful to have one completed and ready to go. Naviance has a great tool for this. Resume Builder is what it's called. And if you need help with that, ask your counselor and we can show you in Naviance where that is. Your list of colleges. Over the summer, you should have been visiting, compiling a list of schools that are a good fit, using Naviance to look at some data. So when you meet with your counselor, you should have a list of schools that you're applying to. The big thing right now is to look at application due dates. Ms. Baines, in a few slides, is going to go over, but Watch on Hills has earlier application due dates, and it's really important to know when those are, so we can make sure we get transcripts and letters of recommendation sent out on time. So that's the next thing really, is looking at the colleges, but paying attention to their admissions page and when the deadlines are. You know, early decision, early action, regular decision. SAT and ACT testing, as Mrs. Saget said, it's pretty much unique to each college what they're doing, so make sure you're checking on their website for how they want scores sent if you're going to send them, and if you do send them, you need to send them directly from your account in College Board or on your act.org account. And student athletes, this is very important if you are looking into being recruited by a Division I or a Division II school. You need to make sure you're registered with the NCAA online. And once you register, make sure you let your counselor know. If you're in the recruitment process, please keep your counselor in the loop, as that can be helpful if we need to get transcripts out or make adjustments on Naviance. And you need to be registered in order for us to send your transcript, especially at the end of the year. And that is how you're going to be deemed eligible in the system once you move on to wherever you're going to play. And the application process, you can start working on that right now. The Common App is open. Many of the colleges that are not on the Common App and have their own application, like Rutgers, you can go directly on the website and start working on that application. Once you have submitted your application, you are going to need to let us know, though, once you've submitted, so we can then go in through Naviance and send out letters of recommendation and transcripts. And counselor meetings, we're here to help, so please make sure you reach out if you have any questions. We'll be reaching out to meet with you, but we're here during lunch. Lunch is a really good time to come see us and ask questions or just email us. And Mr. Toy is going to come up next.
Thank you, Monica. There's no slide up there for me, and I think I just want to take a break, and we want to take a break from the slides. We're going to get back to the process. I think if I were to put a slide up there, it would be called Pep Talk about the process of ownership about this process. And Barbara Meyer talked about the process, and some of you have been thinking about this for some time. For some of you, I think in the last couple of years, you've thought about this process, right? Some of you, maybe you started thinking about this process back in middle school, maybe even earlier. Some of you are starting tonight to think about that process. Wherever you are in that process, okay, and I call it a project. Wherever you are, I want to sell the concept of owning the project. I want you as a senior to be the project manager. I think it's really important We don't want you to get out of high school without taking full charge and embracing ownership of that project. It's really important. Often, you may have friends, you may know people who they're so busy, and parents, I know you may fall into this trap, they're so busy, you want to make the phone call to the college. You want to email the counselor. Please, have the student do that. I know they're busy, but when they go off to college, if they get a job and their boss says you got to do this project, they can look back to this experience and realize that they can do it. They can handle all these things, all these important steps, all the research you've done, going over all the stuff we're going through tonight, which is always going to be there, and you can come down and talk to us. So please, my pep talk tonight is about owning the process. Don't outsource it. Be the person that takes charge, because we know that this is something that's going to you're going to be very valuable down the road for you, okay? Now, back to the slides and back to the process. Tara Miles is going to come up and talk to you about what happens after you apply, about the application process and sending in transcripts. Thank you.
How's everyone doing? We okay? Okay, take a deep breath. You're going to be okay. So this is the part of the presentation which I like to call the nuts and bolts. Okay, we've talked about finding your fit, visiting the schools, asking your teachers to write letters of recommendation. Hopefully you've done all of that. So now we've completed the application. We need to actually hit the submit button. And I realize that can be very scary. Please talk to your counselors. I know for the kids on my caseload, I welcome you to make an appointment with me if you want to just have me look it over for you, and I think my colleagues would do the same. There are some portions when it's school-specific questions, class size, do we rank, things like that. Kids sometimes guess. It's better to ask us, and we can go over that information with you. But once you actually hit submit and pay the fee, we then have to get the transcripts and your letters of recommendation to those colleges. So what you need to do is make sure in Naviance that you have your list of colleges you're thinking about, and once we're ready to actually submit those applications, we're going to move them over now to the colleges I'm applying to. Again, if this sounds overwhelming because we're going from Common App, or we're going to a school's website, or we're going back to Naviance, it's very confusing because you're jumping back and forth between the different platforms, make an appointment and come and see us. We'd rather keep your anxiety at a low level, including ourselves, and if we can do that together, which we prefer, just so that things go smoothly, that's the way that we want to do this, okay? So your first step is going to be to submit that application, or at least check it over with us, so then you can go home and hit the submit button. Once you do that, you then are going to bring to your counselor one universal transcript release form, and we have that up there for you. That form can be found on the counseling website. You complete it one time. Basically, it's a permission slip for your counselor to submit an official transcript to the colleges that you're applying to. You only have to do it once, and it covers all the schools that you apply to. So you'll bring that to us when you come and see us. The third step is then going to be making the request for the letters of recommendation to be sent to those colleges. It is up to the student to make sure that you bring some things with you to your meeting. Number one, we need to have the email address and or password that you may have used on your Common App. If you're using that application, we have to link Common App to Naviance in order to send your materials. We also need to know the names of the teachers that you have asked to write letters of recommendation on your behalf. We then sit there with you and kind of go into your Naviance account and make a formal request. Mr. Smith, you may now send Johnny's letter to Colgate, okay? We are going to do that with you together because there is a process. Sometimes computers don't always agree with us, so we want to make sure we kind of bypass any of the glitches, and again, keep you calm, make sure it goes well. We also want to make sure that we have the information current in Naviance, especially when it comes up to the mid-year part. Sometimes we have to send mid-year transcripts. We want to make sure we have everything up to date and accurate. In terms of SAT and ACT scores, going back to what my colleague said, it's really important that you pay attention to which schools are going to need test scores. If you're confused, because again, on the Common App and some of the college applications, they ask about, do you want to self-report? Should I not self-report? Talk it through with us. If it is a school that you do have to send test scores, you have to send it through the testing companies. And we have the websites up there for you as part of our slide presentation, but we don't send them for you. That's up to you. And again, we can assist you with that process. So just to kind of recap, Submit your application, bring in that transcript release form, and then we're going to send the letters of recommendation. Most of that is going to be done with your counselor. The 3 steps just to do it together, okay? Mrs. Baines, who's gonna come up next, she's gonna go through our deadlines. That's really important. And the other big thing, just communicate with us. If you're not sure, ask. You're not bothering us, we would rather you ask the questions so we can help you, because again, we know that this is a daunting process. Even if you've had older siblings go through it, there's been so many changes over the years that it's a lot to keep up with. But take a deep breath. You're gonna find your fit, you're gonna find your school, and we're going to be there to celebrate with you when the results come in. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Miss Baines. Just wanted to go over the deadlines. So if you have a November 1st deadline for a college application, you'll want to connect with your counselor by October 11th. And the way we got that is it's 15 school days in advance. So sorry, let me just make sure you can see this. If you have a November 15th, you'll want to connect with your counselor by October 21st. December 1st, make sure you connect by November 4th, and so on. And that's just to make sure that we're on the same page so we can move your colleges I'm thinking about to your colleges I'm applying to. This is to make sure that you selected the right application type, whether you're applying early action, early decision. We want to make sure that you don't accidentally apply binding if you don't mean to. And you know, if it's rolling, regular, we need to make sure together, counselor and student, that we have all the correct deadlines. So together, we will move them from colleges I'm thinking about to colleges I'm applying to. Something important to note is that when you're on Common App, there is an area for recommenders. That's not what you use. You're going to add your teacher recommenders on Naviance. So your counselor and you can do that together. Do not add them on Common App. And your counselor sends your recommendation letter themselves. You don't have to request that. And now Mr. Carmenini is going to talk about NCAA.
So I'm lucky enough to talk about probably the most difficult topic, which is financial aid. And full disclosure, I have 2 sons, and one of them is a senior this year. So we at home are going through this myself. And it's really important that you have a serious conversation with your child about the cost of education. Of course, in the media, you're hearing a lot about the value of education. What is the real cost? What is its worth? And so it's a very important topic these days to think about how much in debt is your child willing to be in when they graduate college, or you yourself, when you think about financing college, what that does to your finances and your plans in retirement. I'm not going to go too much into the nuts and bolts of financial aid and filling out the free application for federal student aid, because that's going to be done on September 28th at 7 p.m. on a Zoom webinar where you'll have an expert come in to Watchung Hills or Zoom in and give an online presentation of the nuts and bolts of how to fill out that form. Many parents question whether or not this form is worth filling out. So we're talking about the FAFSA. It's more commonly known as the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Some parents often say, well, I know I'm not entitled to any need-based aid. I don't want to go through the process. I'm not going to be entitled to any federal money. And this is a need-based application. However, many colleges want this form filled out to help determine institutional money, grant money that the colleges give out to students as well. So when you speak to colleges about this, most college financial aid officers, probably all of them, will tell you that they still want that form filled out in order to help determine institutional money that they give out to students. So this form becomes available on October 1st. Unlike years ago, you use prior year's tax information. So as long as you are up to date with your tax filings, it's a pretty easy form to fill out. It's not available until October 1st. The only thing you could do right now is get a PIN for a parent and a PIN for your child. You need 2 PINs. You could do that in advance, but you can't start the application until October 1st. The application itself is not really due to the spring. However, that's not really true because a lot of colleges set their own deadline for financial aid. And if any of your children are applying early, it may be important that you find out what that deadline is. I think it could be safe to say that if you fill that application out by the middle of November, that would be early enough for most schools. But it is a process that you should go through. In addition to filling out, if your child is considering New Jersey schools, the New Jersey State financial aid application. There is a website that is a New Jersey-based organization called HESA, Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, and that website is very, very helpful in understanding the financial aid process, along with providing assistance to families who might need assistance in figuring out the financial aid process. The bottom line with financial aid is that there's going to be need-based aid, there's going to be grant money that the college might offer you that could be need-based or it could be merit-based, and then there's going to be out-of-pocket costs and/or loans and work study. And so when you apply to colleges, as long as you're not applying early decision, if you apply to 8 colleges and you get accepted to 6 of them, you can wait to see what the financial aid packages are and compare them before you make a decision. If you don't apply anywhere early decision, you'll have till May 1st to make a decision on where you want to attend school. Now, speaking of early decision, right, there's early decision and early action. Early decision is a binding agreement that if you apply to a school along their ED policy, that you're committing to go there if admitted. That's different than early action. There's no commitment there. You can only apply to one school early decision. And if you apply early decision, you really are committing. So we ask that if you are going to use an early decision policy, that you carefully read that policy and that you carefully determine what the financial situation might be for you at that school. Some tools, some estimator tools that can help with that. There's something called a net price calculator. That is a requirement by the government that every college have something called a net price calculator on their website. Sometimes they're buried and hard to find, but if you just Google net price calculator, Rutgers, net price calculator, Lehigh, you'll typically find the web page, and it will be a tool for you to use to pour in some information about your child and your finances and get a guess of what the cost of the college would be for you. The federal FAFSA website also has something, and I have that there, it's called a student aid estimator, and that estimator can also help you determine what your expected family contribution would be. So it's another tool that you can use. If you apply ED, you are committing to go to that school. If you are unhappy with the offer after being admitted, you're not going to get backing from Watchung Hills to help your child back out of that. And in fact, the college that accepted your child ED will probably likely not want to allow you to back out of that till you notify the other schools that you signed an ED agreement. It's a very negative thing to do, and it's very negative for future students from Watchung Hills. So it's not something we endorse. That is different than a change in financial circumstances. Things happen. Something happens to your business. There's something happens within your family that really impacts your finances. That's an opportunity before you try and back out to talk to the financial aid office about this sudden financial change in your family situation. If you have questions about ED and you're uncertain, please reach out to your counselor and have a conversation with them as well. So there's some other tools here in paying for college. You can certainly navigate those. There's lots of information. One of the conversations that my wife and I are having is how much skin in the game do we want our child to have? You know, having your child take out a student loan gives them some skin in the game, and if they have some skin in the game, does that motivate them to be a better student? Now, it could be that, you know, you do that, and at the end of that, you decide to help them pay off that loan, but there's something, I think, in that, the idea of giving your child some responsibility, understanding what the real cost of education is. So again, that's something to talk about. Scholarships. So sometimes students come to me and they're like really excited, they want to look for scholarships. So when you apply to a college, you'll automatically be considered for scholarships for that institution based upon your academic profile. So if you're above average student at that school, probably that school will offer you some money. If you're far above average, they may offer you even more than some money. That's just, you apply to the school and you're considered based on your academic profile. Obviously, we talked about need-based aid. You can get some scholarship money there, but if you're not entitled to need-based aid, so you're just looking at institutional money based upon merit or special talent. And then there are outside scholarships. There's a tool called FastWeb, and I listed 3 others there. These are websites that help students navigate the scholarships that are out there. And there are thousands of scholarships out there for all different things, from left-handedness to red hair to having a certain ethnic background. Some of these are big scholarships, and the bigger the scholarship, the harder they are to get, the more competitive they are to get. So, and each one has an application. Some can have an extensive essay or process. And so they do take time, so your child has to be realistic about how much money they think they're going to earn towards college by navigating the outside scholarship world. There are easier ones, or I shouldn't say easier, less competitive ones compared to the big ones like a Coca-Cola or a Gates Foundation scholarship that we do post on our website. They would be local scholarships, and they can range in price, but it certainly could be helpful to pay for some of the cost of tuition, including books and so forth. Those will be on our website, on the counseling section of our website, and usually they start to populate on our website in the springtime. So if you went on there now, you may not see any on there, but as we get closer to the spring and winter, maybe starting in the winter, but more so in the spring, there'll be scholarship opportunities from local organizations on our website. Sometimes the scholarships require counselors to do something. As your child navigates that scholarship application, they'll let us know if they need us to send something to that scholarship application. Sometimes it's a recommendation, sometimes it's a recommendation and a transcript. Some private colleges who give out lots of money want more detailed information on your personal finances if you want to be considered for some aid. That's called the CSS profile. It's a college board form. You pay for it, and you submit it to the college by a date the college has assigned that is due by. Again, this is not 100% of the colleges. If you go on the website, you can see the list of, 100 colleges or so that require this CSS profile. Lastly, I think it was mentioned, but NCAA, if your child is a Division I or Division II athlete, they really need to be, they should probably have already registered. If they didn't, they need to get on there and register and make sure their counselor submits a transcript. Right now for 2023, the standardized test requirement has been waived. But if your child took the standardized test, I guess that could be submitted as well. And I think I'm done with this. Again, please make sure, if it's the first time you've gone through this and you're curious about the free application for student aid, please be sure to join us virtually on September 28th at 7 p.m. for a more detailed help navigating that form and understanding that form. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Sabino.
Thank you, Mr. Carminini. So I think that Mr. Carminini certainly shared a lot of great information about the financial aid night. I'd be remiss without mentioning this is the 4th school district I've worked in, and some high-performing school districts in addition to Watchung Hills. There's always students every year who are eligible for local scholarships. No surprise to you, because you're in this community, we have a number of local memorial scholarships that are offered here through the community, through Warren, Watchung, Long Hill, and Greenbrook, that we look for students to be applying to. So I know there's a lot of information you received tonight, but one thing I would just ask you jot down or you circle back to is after the application process is passed and you've decided on where you're looking to apply, that you keep in mind that second opportunity after you've already applied to colleges, come the winter, come the spring, to look at additional opportunities for financial support through the local and memorial scholarships. It's if you apply, we have streamlined the process the last few years with the help of the principal's administrative assistant, Ms. Grafer. She streamlined it so it's more of a quote-unquote common application. We think that might be trademarked, but we're using that more local in-house for a separate form that is used for the scholarships for local and memorial scholarships. So it's a great opportunity to apply and also, honestly, to be recognized, right? So there's a twofer there. You get a chance to apply and also be recognized by somebody in your community if you get recognized for a scholarship and come to one of the nice events at the end of the year to have your child or be recognized yourself as a senior. So I just really want to encourage you to consider looking at that later on in the process. So I think the only thing I wanted to share here was, again, just reiterating that we are having on September 28th, the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, that we're going to have a representative from that organization present financial aid, and they'll go into detail, as Mr. Carmenini mentioned, with the financial, for the free application for student aid, in addition to covering some of the review in regards to the CSS profile, which Mr. Carmenini mentioned is for some specific and more selective schools do often look for that as well. So that'll be a good opportunity. I know it's a lot to ask you to come out and be here in person. So the rep for that was looking to do that virtually. So I thought that might be a good complement. Instead of having you come out twice in the month of September, we're going to do that one remotely. So wherever you are that night, you can either log in. We also will record it. So if that night and that time doesn't work for you, you can we'll post it on the counseling website so you can reference back to it. There's always some thoughts of concern about October 1st being, when the free application for student aid opens up, but you have time to complete that. It's better to do it accurate than just to do it for the October 1st deadline. So once it opens up, when you're able to start entering it on October 1, hopefully if you've had a chance to review the presentation that we provide here, you'll be well prepared to do that. And if you have any other questions, you can ask on that night, or we can also give you follow-up contacts. I certainly have contacts as well if you have any questions specifically for your situation after that presentation. So feel free to reach out to us on that piece as well. We have a few minutes here. I just thought if there's some pressing question that you feel is good for the group here, that's not about your individual circumstance, but more just a general question overall, feel free to let us know or put your hand up, and we'll ask Ms. Kruger to come over to you and have you the opportunity to ask a question. Any questions at this time? Everybody eager to go home on this gorgeous night? All right, thank you so much for coming. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be talking to you. Thanks again. And thanks to the school counselors for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.